Well, that was a really good conversation that we're going to just show to you now.
Yeah. Who did we talk to?
We talked to Meredith Reines, Meredith _Deanne That's her Instagram handle. We talk about.
She's got a hefty Instagram channel, doesn't she?
Yeah, like, almost 30,000 followers and counting.
It's almost 30,000 more than I have.
I knew her when she had 18,000 followers, so I'm like an
Real
original.
OG, yeah.
Yeah. So she's on the show today where we talk about social media, marketing, being an influencer in a market, in the Saskatchewan market, and working with big brands.
And she has a really unique personal health story as well.
Yeah, she talks openly about her
heart surgery, which also was open.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, we forgot. I'm Matt Ramage.
I'm Dustin.
This is Before the Dust Settles, a show dedicated to real conversations with people and change makers in the world. And we think you're going to like this episode.
You'll love it.
Thanks for coming here.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you were just mentioning that you're not so much into the analytics portion of digital. You're more so into content creation?
Yeah. So I really enjoy content creation, but I need to pay attention more so to the analytical side of things, because as I'm learning more about that, that's how I'm learning how to target my audience more appropriately, the different times of day that I should be posting things, or how to because I'm kind of my own brand in a way. And so it started out all creative on the creative side of things. And now that it's kind of blossomed into more of a business, I have to start paying attention to this analytical side, which is not like my nature. So.
Well, I was like, so you were talking to me, you approached me about making some content for one of your clients.
Yes.
And we chatted a little bit, and I'm like, we should have you on the show.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you're like really digging into, what would you say? Like, you're on Instagram particularly, but you're turning.
Yeah.
Would you call yourself an Instagram influencer?
Well, I mean, I hate the term influencer, to be honest. I feel like it has a really negative connotation. I prefer content creator. But yeah, I mean, I think the kind of most well-known term would be influencer.
And you're a teacher.
Yeah.
By trade.
Yes, yeah. So I work for Prairie Spirit School Division, and I work out of their division office right now, which is great, and I really enjoy it. But I kind of feel like a lot of my creative side, I sort of put aside when I became a mom. That sounds terrible, but I just got busy, doing all kinds of other things. And with my work, I mean, there is a creative aspect to my work as well, which I really enjoy. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, I was always crafting and scrapbooking and, drawing and putting tape all over everything. So this kind of digital, art is fun for me. I'm really enjoying digging into it.
So tell like, I'm so curious, because like, there's what you do, mm-hmm. and this isn't like, this is so common with like many people, like there's what they do, and then they start to get into different things they just like, that really gets them, like really like pulls something out of them.
Yeah.
And now you're turning it, like, are you entrepreneur? Would you say you're an entrepreneurial person, or?
I don't think I would have said that a year ago, but I think now I've sort of embraced that entrepreneurial side of what I'm doing, because I'm actually seeing the benefits of what I'm doing in a more business-like way. Like, I'm making money off of what I'm doing, and I'm able to network, and I'm making connections, and I'm growing, which is really kind of interesting to me and fun to me, that I've been able to take something that really just started out as this sort of digital scrapbooking hobby and grow it into not like an empire, but kind of my own little piece of the world that I'm like building here. And I just think it's fun, and I'm always blown away that people are interested in what I'm doing and want to follow along with it.
So do you have some objectives now? Like, it sounds like this has been really organic, but now that you're sort of here, are you starting to establish some goals for yourself?
Yeah. So just to like take you guys back a little bit in terms of how I got started. it was about 2 years ago that I was first introduced to the idea of an influencer. Truthfully, I mean, I didn't know that moms in their houses at home with their kids were doing this whole influencer thing. I had no idea. And I got introduced to a really beautiful account on Instagram, and I was blown away that this was just like another mom like me with this beautiful Instagram account who was monetizing her platform and kind of helping her family. And so I thought that was cool, but what actually drew me in at first was just how beautiful it looked, because my Instagram was like a mess. Like, it was just kind of that very typical, snap a pic, post it, throw the Valencia filter on it or whatever and put it out there. And so I was really attracted to the artistic side of it first. And I wanted to have a beautiful Instagram feed. I wanted to have, almost like a keepsake, and to put time and energy into taking pictures of my kids on a regular basis and just have something for me. And so I started to become a lot more intentional about taking pictures, learning how to use my iPhone better, and playing around with some really high quality apps and different things to help me edit my photos. And after about 6 months of that's when I started to realize that I could really actually make money doing it. But I was all alone. I didn't have anyone in my social circles that were doing anything like that. So I kind of just dove in on my own and started making some connections with people through Instagram. So they were kind of from all over the world, and we were all sort of trying to figure it out together. And I would say I really started to be able to pull in a pretty decent income off of it within the last 8 months. It really started to become a lot more intentional. So yes, I have goals now in terms of my growth and sort of expanding into other social media platforms. So it started with Instagram, but I have a blog, and that's something that I'm working on growing and creating content for. And then I also use other social media platforms more intentionally, like Pinterest and Facebook. I'm really bad at Twitter. I've tried so many times to have a Twitter account, and I just never remember to go online and tweet anything. So maybe down the road we'll
every
branch into
tweet's
Twitter,
like, hey, sorry, I haven't been there for a while. It's just apology after apology of like, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just been busy.
Yeah,
Like, sorry,
yeah.
I'm still here, but I've been busy.
No, exactly. So yeah, I have goals about growth, but I'd say it's a combination of sort of organic and also just intentionality. If that makes sense.
So you were sort of mentioning that you've monetized your platform and your voice, and are one of your goals to sort of take this full time and become sort of like a professional social media personality, or like is that just sort of like the dream, and if it happens, it happens?
Right. I mean, yes and no. Like, it's actually a pretty not so much competitive market, because the interesting thing I think about social media influencing and monetizing your platforms is that in a way there actually is almost room for everyone at the top, because people are drawn to things for so many different reasons that, and when it comes to the way that we make money, which just straight up, it's typically through advertising for companies that think that I reflect their brand, or my lifestyle would reflect the brand that they're selling, or appeal to my audience or whatever.
Can you just speak to that for a second? Can you just,
Yeah.
for all of us that are naive and don't understand how that would work, can you explain like what is there a typical ask, and is there like, we need these deliverables from you, or like what does that actually look like?
And
Yeah.
are you bartering for the price, or do you have now
Yeah.
a rate sheet? You're like, hey, sorry, I'm not just
Well, yeah. So, I mean, at first, when I started, when I first dove into this, I had no clue what I was doing. Like, they typically call them like collaborations. I prefer the term partnership, because I like for businesses that I'm working with to approach it as a partnership. We both bring something to the table. And I know collaboration is a similar word, but I just like the word partnership better. So what typically happens for me now is a company will reach out. I don't work with any like specific PR companies, but I typically get approached by PR companies on behalf of larger companies or their clients. So they'll message me and they'll ask, sometimes they ask for my rates, you know, this is what we want from you. We want an Instagram post and we want a blog post and we want you to do 2 stories and you have to use the swipe up feature and can you include these hashtags and all these sorts of things. And then sometimes they'll ask me what my rates are. And then I have something called a media kit, which is sort of like a resume of what I do and what I offer and how much I charge for different things and some examples of my work and all my social media handles and things like that. And I'll send that to them. And then sometimes we'll negotiate. Sometimes they'll offer something straight up and say, okay, we're running this campaign and this is what the ask is and you're gonna be paid X number of dollars. Are you interested? There's always room for negotiation. And it's really interesting because I had a really well-known, like internationally well-known company that really was like lowballing all of the influencers that they were connecting with. They didn't even want to pay. They wanted to give gift cards to their shop. And we were all kind of like, no. Like of all of the companies you can afford to be paying for marketing, you for sure have a marketing budget. And then you'll get other
Dove.
It wasn't Dove. It wasn't Dove, but it was one that...
Who owns Dove? It's probably like the parent company. I don't even know.
Probably like
Procter and Gamble.
Oh, maybe, hey.
Yeah, I'm sure you can't name drop it.
Well, I've never worked with Dove, and I won't tell you what this other company was, but you would know it if you heard it.
She'll tell us. She'll tell us later.
Tell you later. You can
We'll say the mics are off.
Edit it in. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
But yeah, and then you'll have other companies that are maybe lesser known or equally well known that will just come up and straight up offer you a really good amount of money for what they want you to do. And there's kind of a basic understanding that a good base rate is about $100 per 1,000 or per 10,000 followers for one Instagram post. So that's kind of the baseline that people work off of, and then your analytics can make things worth more or less.
This was this morning. Do you know Gary Vaynerchuk?
I know the name, but I don't, not really.
It's fine. You're not missing out much. He's like, people either love him or hate him. He's just one of those people.
Yeah.
Anyway, he made a business off of YouTubing for his parents' wine store in New York City, and now he's worth apparently $160 million.
Right.
He's done really well. Anyway, he rants a lot, but one of the things he was talking about was influencers are the most undervalued marketing tool right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, one of the things he always says is it'll always balance out.
Right.
You know, like traditional TV ads are like, no one cares anymore.
Right.
But now it's like the influencers. I mean, even look at the ads for GM does all those real world. Oh, I didn't know that was a Chevy. It's like, you know, they're getting more into that. They're like,
yeah.
But anyway, so they were saying that's he was saying it's super undervalued and that'll just keep kind of climbing. Yeah,
I think, again, at the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing, and I did...
you were happy to get a free thing?
Yeah, basically, I did a ton of product for post in the beginning. Now, granted, I was much smaller. My content wasn't as good. I was learning, so I get that there was... for me, I don't regret that I did some of those partnerships because I've always only promoted things that I actually think are decent. If I get a product and it's crap, I send it back. I won't promote. I won't sacrifice my integrity for a product. And I think that's really important in the influencer world too, because I think, that's your following has to trust you and, trust that what you're putting out there is legit. So that's really important because I'm my own brand, right? My family, my kids, myself, I want to reflect reality, but also, not that reality isn't integrity. Both, they go together, right? My real self and my integrity goes together,
So burning question is, does that create fatigue in not only your life, but in your husband's life and in your family's life?
Yeah. So we're pretty good. I'm pretty good about, the photos and the content creation aspect when it comes to my kids. a lot of the things that we promote or that I decide I'm going to promote integrate really easily into what we would do anyway. So the kids haven't typically had too much of an issue with it. We did have a chat with our older two. Well, I did more so. My husband, it's funny because he's very supportive, but he doesn't like get on the other side of the camera very often. Sometimes I'll have him take pictures for me, and that's always really
Yeah, I
funny.
saw his side face the other day on your
yeah.
very handsome side face.
Handsome swoop, right?
He's got that blonde hair.
Yeah. So he's very supportive, but he would probably straight up admit he's very analytical. Like he's into math and physics and all those sorts of things. So if I tell him exactly where to stand and exactly how to hold the camera or the phone or whatever, and then I just arrange everything, then he can take a picture of it. But yeah, I mean, the kids, they get it, they understand it. They're typically pretty good about, diving in. And sometimes what we'll do is I'll just take an afternoon where I'll say, okay, we're gonna take some pictures for about an hour this afternoon, and I'll have a few different collaborations or partnerships lined up, and we'll just kind of hammer it out. So it's not like it's every day or all the time.
So you really treat it like a job.
Yeah, I do. Now I do, because I'm dealing with some big partnerships and, significant amounts of money. And I had to claim taxes on it all this last year. The first year I did it, I had no idea about, taxes or how this worked. And truthfully, even this is very new territory for, CRA.
Yeah.
It actually is.
Yeah, if they're giving you product and for a trade,
Yes.
you should pay tax on the retail value. I'm sure.
Exact. So there's two ways.
It's technically a barter, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm sure that there are lots of influencers that don't claim it or don't even know that they're supposed to. But I'm very concerned about those kinds of things. So I made sure I knew what we needed to do, and
Good for you.
So
Probably
yeah,
makes
I
it more
think it's important.
sustainable long term as well.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And it just, again, I want to have integrity, so I'm not going to try and cheat the system to get ahead.
So let's talk about the system for a second.
Sure.
The Instagram system. Like you're living and working and trying to build something on a platform that is monitored and run by algorithms
Yeah.
that are built by strangers that don't know you, don't care about your ambitions and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And those may change.
Yeah. So go ahead, ask your question.
Well, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on having so much of what you do that's wrapped up in an algorithm that you can't control, and such a big part of your business being or playing, I guess, in a world where the rules of the game can change at any moment, and there's no notice.
Yeah, that's actually the scariest part of it all. And I don't know, how much do you guys do on Instagram? Much
I
at
have
all?
it.
So,
I pay for ads, so I have some ads running on there. But
sponsored posts.
as
or
far as the
whatever.
organic reach, I'm like,
Yeah.
if I post 3 times a month, I'm doing okay.
Okay.
Which is terrible, especially as a
Well,
photographer.
But hey, we all have to focus our time and energy somewhere, right? So yeah, that part of it is scary. And that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to branch out more so and I want my content to be mine, whether Instagram exists or not.
Is that the whole motivation for having a blog, like your own blog?
Yeah, basically. And so it's one of the things that became really popular over the last year and a half, which I haven't done yet, but I probably should, is a lot of blogs have started newsletters. So you basically get people to sign up for your newsletter, because the idea is that, if Instagram fell apart tomorrow or was gone, if they just decided, poof, we're done with this, it's gone, I would never be able to find my audience or even some of my friends that I've connected with on Instagram, right? In some cases, that's the way that we communicate or we connect or whatever. So that's the downside of Instagram, is that I don't actually have contact information. I don't have everything, like you said, is based on this algorithm and this free app that exists. And so, yeah, I'm trying to pull more of my following, truthfully, over to my blog, so that if Instagram ever did go up in smoke, I would still have content and a place where people could find me and what I do. A couple weeks ago, Instagram went down for a day and people were freaking out.
I remember.
Yeah. It
was like there's memes about it, which is just,
oh yeah, like Twitter was on fire with comments about
it's a great Instagram drought of 2019. Or
totally.
something.
And it was just for a day. It was like 24 hours because I think they changed something in the algorithm. So, I mean, it's really important, again, that analytical side that I don't care so much for.
Did you have a heart attack?
No, I've had one of those before, but it wasn't then.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, no. But what was I saying? What were we talking about?
Down for a day.
Yeah, so it was down for a day, and I'm not so much into the analytical side. Like, that's not my go-to, but yeah, I have to pay attention to the algorithm and to how it changes, because that changes how I connect with my audience and who's going to see my content and what time of day I should be posting and what hashtags I should use and, you know, how I engage with the app. I mean, I believe that Instagram is trying to find a way to make money, to basically get a cut off what all of the influencers are doing.
Okay, and so I find this really interesting because I watch a lot of YouTube, and many people on YouTube make money from I think it's AdSense, or you would maybe know more about that, but they get a check from YouTube.
Right.
If they sponsor, I believe that video is demonetized. YouTube will still run ads, and YouTube keeps all the money.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I think that's
that's correct.
And so that's like YouTube's thing, and I wonder if Instagram does have paid posts.
They do, and you can pay to sponsor a post. So what ends up happening is if a post if you sponsor a post, and I've had 2 posts sponsored in the past, and that was at the request of the company that I was working with. They actually paid for me to sponsor the post, and that was part of our contract. And so what you end up having happen typically is you get more likes, and you also get better insights. So however far your reach is, it'll show you how many people actually put eyes on your content, whether or not they decided to like it. Businesses are actually shifting away from worrying so much about the likes, and it would appear that they're more concerned now about the insights, because whether or not someone likes the photo, what the company more so wants to see is that someone saw it, right? Someone saw their product, right? So it is changing a little bit that way, because Instagram actually just got rid of showing likes to everybody. So I can still see how many people have liked my posts or my insights, but yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? Do you like that? Or is that a hindrance to your business?
I don't think it's a hindrance to my business, because I can still provide a company with the analytics in terms of how the post did. You know, how many people saw it, how far was the reach, how many people liked it, how many people commented on it, how many people saved it. Saves is really important. If people are saving your posts, they tend to do better. So anyway, I can still provide all of that to the company. And my understanding is that Instagram decided to do that to try and stop some of the negative feelings that people were experiencing, you know, looking at how many likes someone else's photo may have had compared to theirs, or kind of move away from some of that competitive nature.
Right.
So.
Which I love. I almost and as a photographer, I don't participate. I'm losing the game, which has caused me to not participate in the game of likes, because I don't have that energy to do.
It's hard.
It's a job.
Yeah, it is.
And so it's I wish they would actually even take away how many followers someone has. So what if you're just looking at a page, it's your own feed?
Yeah.
You are literally oh, it's not they must be good because everybody likes them. It's they must be good because they look like they're really good and their posts are very nice. Then I would get back into it maybe and make content.
That's fair. I think if they got rid of the follower count, that could hurt influencers.
The whole platform, because you could still prove it.
I could still prove it.
I guess how would anyone find you?
I think it's
Or maybe I wonder if they could even make the back end for people.
The algorithm could still do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I think you're touching on something that we had a conversation about earlier.
Right.
That I'm really concerned about. There's a lot of people that are living with social media fatigue.
Yes,
And
yeah.
and you know, this constantly feeling like they're having to stack up against other people. Like you're talking about, like you can still present your media kit or
Yeah.
the information about your reach and your influence without that being made public to everybody else. And like I
Yeah.
guess like I'm really curious to know like what you feel social media is doing to young people and even to people that would be considered your fans and people
Right.
that would say that like I am truly influenced by what you're doing.
Right.
And I almost look up to you and I would like to do what you do. And it
Right.
breaks my heart when I don't get the same results as you.
Right.
It makes me feel lesser than.
Yeah, and I think that, I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, so this is just totally, rumor, that one of the reasons that Instagram decided to take away the likes was because of all of the mental health issues that were sort of connected with this competitive nature or feeling lesser than, because yeah, like you said, sometimes people try something and it doesn't work for them, and you can take that personally. For me, I think that that's what I kind of explain to people through my Instagram is like what I put out to the world is real. It's curated, certainly. It's a highlight reel of my life, typically, in terms of the photos, and that's that creative, artistic side, which I think is actually where Instagram started. I think it was meant to be a place where people would capture beautiful images, everyday images, and share them with people in their lives who connected on that sort of artistic level. So I don't think it's like a betrayal of what Instagram intended in the beginning to be putting beautiful content out there. I think the way that people feel about it and in terms of how they react to content, there's only so much of that I can control. But what I do try and do, because I do know that I have a large following at this point, is I try and show
29K.
them 20, yes.
29 point something.
At the point of this recording.
Yeah, I should double check because it's constantly rising and falling, right? But yeah, so what was I saying? It's one of those things where I try always to show the real life as well. And typically you'll see that in my stories. Like you'll see my messy house. You'll see my kids running around in, Mickey Mouse clothes. They're not always in their, fancy curated outfits. Like I try and be real and show that side, and I try and talk about the real things too, whether it's in a post or in a story, so that hopefully people understand that I'm not trying to put out there that my life is perfect, but I love the creative artistic side of it. And so that's part of what I'm going to put out there. Mm-hmm. And I hope it doesn't impact people negatively, but I think it, I've gone through it too, where I'll look at what, how well another account is doing and think like, wow, like,
I only have 29,000.
I know, and they have like 112,000, and it's whatever. Like I try really hard not to compare myself.
Do you actually kind of get down, like, are you like,
or
like you'll see someone you started ahead of them, and then all of a sudden they're like,
all of a sudden they're creeping
up,
ahead. It's really hard to grow organically on social media right now. And I guess that people would say that true organic growth would be people just stumbling upon your account and deciding to follow you. I don't think any influencer is actually just growing that way anymore. I think there's lots of ways that influencers are working to put their content in front of as many eyes as possible. So that's sort of the business side of things, right? And it's...
Break that down for us. Like, what does that look like?
So for me, there's things I will do and things I won't do when it comes to growth. There are a lot of accounts out there with really high follower numbers that have a lot of fake followers. So you can buy followers. You can buy likes. You can purchase bots that will like, and comment on other people's posts for you in your absence. I'm not interested in, 100,000 fake followers, because 100,000 fake followers aren't going to like my photos and, comment and engage and build any sort of community. And Instagram typically, cleans out those fake accounts every so often anyway. So I don't recommend that kind of growth. It might get people a few partnerships right off the hop, but their insights are probably going to be pretty terrible. So that's not.
So are companies like vetting that by your insights? Like
I think some of it, which again, it's not completely fair to say that, your insights, that if you have terrible insights, that means your followers are fake. That's not necessarily a proper correlation. But if you have fake followers, there's a better chance that your insights are going to be not great, because those aren't real people there's no one to look at your post.
Is there a rule of thumb for some of this stuff? Like you just gave us a rule of thumb for number of followers to like what a paid
rate.
post would be worth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's, like I said, that's a very base
We're just gonna
type
keep
of a
rolling.
thing.
Is that okay?
Yeah, you just
I
keep.
just gotta start these up again.
I'm good with whatever, and then you can use whatever actually is decent.
We're using all of it.
Oh
The
no!
first couple episodes, you see me get up and like turn the cat. That one will stay on, but these two stop.
Sure, that's fine. No. Yeah, no, as far as rule of thumb goes, I mean, there's a lot of sort of generally accepted baselines. And then again, I mean, just like photography, I would assume there's sort of a market that you want to fit within. So you're not way underpriced or you're not way overpriced, but you can still kind of charge what you want in terms of, the level of work that you're doing or your experience or your insights or whatever, right? Yeah, I'm trying to think of what some other rules of thumb would be. I think that's probably the biggest one in terms of pay. On Instagram, I mean, I would say a generally accepted rule of thumb for people who are serious about turning this into a business is, don't buy fake followers. Don't buy likes. Don't, do things to put yourself in front of more eyes, for sure. So something that I'll do is I'll participate in giveaways. And that's an opportunity for me. I think of that as like a way to put my account in the path of people who would never have been able to find me in the labyrinth of Instagram. And they have to follow me if they want to enter the giveaway, but the minute that giveaway is over, they can unfollow me. That's a real person that will see my content, and if they're not interested in it, they can unfollow. So, I mean, I think that's, for people who are actually looking to turn it into something, I'd say it's a pretty strong rule of thumb that we're not buying fake followers.
I have this was 2015, one of my friends bought fake followers for his account.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and then he was you buy your followers, and then his photos still only had like 40 or 50 likes.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh crap, now I gotta, and then he was paying for likes on his things.
Right.
And I was like,
What's the point?
This is insane. And I know it looks really, they're vanity metrics, but they
Right.
they look good.
And I mean, that's again what you talked a little bit about with that, social media fatigue. I mean, increasingly there are more and more people, I think, that are looking for creative ways to appear more popular. I would say that in the beginning I worked, I don't want to say harder, but I was more concerned in the beginning with how many likes a post would get, or how many comments I would get. That would kind of be something that I would be really paying attention to. Now it's ironic because the more followers I have, you think I would be more concerned with that, but I'm actually less concerned with it because I'm more concerned now with the insights, and because businesses seem to be more concerned with that. Mm-hmm. And actually another good rule of thumb is that on Instagram, good engagement is actually only 2 to 3% of your entire following. So that's actually the range that most companies are looking for, is that they can see that you're getting about 2 to 3% engagement. So that's not a lot. And for some companies, they just want 1 to 3%. If you look at a huge account, like someone like Jillian Harris, say, who's got almost 1 million followers.
Is she a role model to you? As far as making it a business?
I think what I appreciate about Jillian Harris is that she's created an empire based on what she likes to do. She likes fashion, she likes home design. She's, she likes event organizing and all these things. And she's been able to turn it into this very large empire that
Smash
is flourishing.
and Tess.
Smash and
Rompers?
Tess. Oh yeah, she has a
the
partnership
pocket?
with them. Yeah.
My wife wanted one of those,
Yeah.
and they sold out like in like.
She probably wanted one of Jillian Harris's.
Yeah,
right?
the Jillian
Yeah.
Harris Smash Tess. I don't even know
Romper,
the-
yeah.
I'm like, oh,
I
this
did
is
not
insane.
get one of those either, but yeah. But I mean, what I was gonna say is if you look at her posts, I mean, she's got between 1 to 3 engagement. And I mean, she's got 1 million followers. So you look at her post, she's got 25,000 likes. You're like, oh my gosh, she has 25,000 likes. But if you have 1 million followers, 25,000 likes is not, like, percentage wise, it's not actually that much of your following that's engaging. So I kind of, if I ever start to feel down about the fact that like a smaller account is getting significantly more likes than me or whatever, I kind of go back to that rule of thumb and I'll be like, no, I'm at about 2 to 3% engagement, which is, that's good. That's good organic engagement from my audience. So
here's a question for you. Like in marketing, I know not very much, but the things I do know is that your audience is really important. Not just, an audience isn't what you want. You want the right audience.
yeah.
So I assume companies come to you because you have probably, I'm totally assuming here, it's mothers
Yeah.
in the same stage of life as you,
Yes.
or just a little behind you, probably.
Yeah.
So would you find that like if you post really well to that audience, really good content, not just like not a giveaway, but like a how-to or something. I know you did a
Sure.
workshop for like Flatly, but like I've seen
Yeah.
other things you do are like not tutorial, like
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, sure.
do you find the engagement percentage is even higher? Or-
Yeah, you know what? Truthfully, the highest posts I get, or the highest engaged posts I get, are typically ones when I show pictures of home decor, because people save them. So one of the things that I've started shifting in my mindset is when I am creating content, I think to myself, what would cause me to pause and save someone else's photo? Because saves they appear to be a really big deal right now in the Instagram world in terms of your insights. So the more saves you have seems to correlate with higher insights. And people would say that that's because Instagram only releases your photos or your photo to a certain percentage of your following to start, and then if it does really well, it'll be released to more of your following, et cetera, et cetera. Instagram has never specifically confirmed that, but
Confirmed or denied?
it seems to be like how it works. So when I create content, I now am thinking to myself, okay, like, yeah, my kids are cute and, that's great, but no one's going to save a pile of pictures because my kid is cute. Most people are going to save my photos because there's something in the photo that they want or like or think that they can replicate or want to track down. So that is something that's why I think my home decor photos do the best, because people like the way that looks, or they, want that pillow that I posted about or whatever. So
you had like really great feedback about something like that, where like you saw, I guess with some of your vendors, if you have a link, it's
Yeah.
a vendor or a affiliate link or something, like
yeah.
if you had like really great success on certain things you did, and then it gave your the company you're working with like really higher than expected results or something like that.
Right. A lot of companies still aren't.
Or they're not sharing back how good it
Yeah,
was. Okay.
yeah. And the only way that they can really do that is if they give you a code to use. So if sometimes a company will be like, okay, we want you to post this, and if they use code Meredith 20, they're going to get 20% off their purchase or whatever. So then
Sponsored
they
by
can track
Squarespace.
it. Pardon?
Sponsored by Squarespace. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. So then they can track, because they'll know exactly who is coming to them because of me. But most of these companies are working with so many different influencers at the same time that it would be really hard for them to track just off a post anyway. Off a story, it's a little easier, again, too, because once you hit 10,000 followers, you can use the swipe feature. So a lot of companies actually are moving towards story-based content even more so than the posts in some cases, because we can provide insights and use the swipe feature to actually show how many people are actually going to your site, not just liking this picture.
Are some of them actually giving you special URLs that they want you to use?
Yep, they do.
Is
And
that
then
the
they can
majority
track.
even now? Or?
I would say on stories, yeah, most companies will give you a URL that they want you to link to. I'm doing a partnership right now, which is just stories. It's completely stories. Well, that's not
Do you have to hold it on the highlight too?
I have to keep it in the highlight reel. You would know if you go look at my Instagram, you'll see which one it is. But that's a very lucrative partnership for me, that one. And it's just completely stories. And truthfully, I get more views on my stories than I get likes on my posts.
Do you think that's a trend that's happening, or are less people consuming posts?
I think it's a trend. I think that vlogging is becoming extremely popular, more so than blogging. So, I mean, of course, there's this part of me that's like, why am I focusing on this blog? I should be starting a vlog, but I don't have the...
You want to talk about adding work to your life?
Well, exactly. And I
did a 5-day challenge and got done 2 days.
Well, and the thing too is that I don't have those filming skills, right? That's not...
You got the hustle. You could learn it.
Well, I could learn it, I guess. But again, it's social media fatigue. I just can't take on one more thing. But I do think that people, I don't know if it's a generational thing maybe, but I mean, I don't watch vlogs at all.
But do you ever go to YouTube? Because I know statistically what I've heard is YouTube is very much men or males.
I almost never go to YouTube. I would never sit down and watch a vlogger on YouTube. I just don't. But I think a lot of young people do. I know a lot of young women anyway, teenagers, who would go and watch a makeup tutorial, or they'll follow a vlogger who, so I don't know who's fashion based or whatever. I just would never do that because truthfully, I don't have time to sit and watch a 30-minute vlog. So for me, I like Instagram because I actually feel like posts are quicker. I can scroll through and see very quickly what I like in a 5-minute time period, turn it off, and come back to it, and it's exactly where I left it. I feel like there's more of a time commitment to sit down and watch a vlog from start to finish than there is to just scroll. So,
and there's no urgency to YouTube, where stories are going to go.
Yeah, they are. And so, I mean, I guess more and more people are leaning towards IGTV as well on Instagram, which I've just started playing around with IGTV. And it's kind of interesting. I think what Instagram is trying to do is I think they want vloggers to stop using YouTube and to post their content on IGTV. And I mean, Instagram actually did a really good job of making Snapchat not irrelevant, but a lot of people are not using Snapchat the way that they used to because you can do the same thing on stories. So, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think IGTV will ever replace
I
YouTube.
think they're forcing the vertical thing. I think that's the...
Yeah.
Just it's not this hard for someone to do this.
Yeah.
That's not hard.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And it's I put a couple vlogs on Instagram TV. So I put the white space so it fits and my video sits in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want to be able to just put the video
on. Yeah, and I mean, maybe they'll work out kinks or, I mean, I don't know.
Stories make sense vertical because you hold your phone and you fill it with that, but.
Yeah. It's just one more job to do.
Totally. I don't know.
Yeah. No.
This is super, super interesting to
me. Is it?
Because I just find the world of, it's all hearsay and we don't know. I mean, you said it yourself, you're at their mercy. They could delete your account.
Yep.
There could be an error where your account got accidentally deleted. Not that these are going to likely
happen.
happen.
No, but it can happen. Yeah.
You're using your you're building a mailing list or a newsletter, like, which I think is like genius, because I think that's still like a timeless thing that can, like, when I think about my wife's shopping habits, like, you know, when I look at her inbox on her phone, it's like
It's like all
Gap.
from the Gap.
yeah, it's Gap, Old Navy, you know, Gap Factory,
Yeah.
friends and family nights. Like, it's just like this feed of things, which is like, she spends a lot of time, and I'm only saying this because I think it's typical, is like she spends a lot of time shopping on her phone.
Oh yeah.
And then Instagram, and I'm there totally like YouTubing things, which is like, I'm not YouTubing creative content typically. I'm YouTubing
Right.
like tutorials or things I'm interested in
Yeah.
learning, and it's just like such an interesting thing, like case study, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. I guess I never really thought about it that way, but I mean, my husband would go on YouTube for sure, and he'd watch like sports highlight reels, or he would, you know, he would turn music on YouTube and have like music videos playing in the background while he's doing something else, which I wouldn't like. I just don't use YouTube in the same way that he does, but
Well, that's where as like a wedding photographer, it's like I feel like I'm missing out on like a big part of the market by not engaging with women, you know, getting married. Like, I just booked a wedding
Right.
a month ago, and they saw, thank God they saw it, but they saw a post of a photo I took at the Ramey Modern, and
Right.
they were looking at Ramey Modern weddings on Instagram, and that's how they got a hold of me.
right.
And I'm like, well, I booked their wedding because they liked what I did there, and their wedding's at Ramey, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
there's the value here. Like, that's a really good example.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Well,
I'm
yeah.
not engaging there, and I'm like, I mean, I'm putting my energy into my vlog,
Sure.
which is like, I've committed to one every week.
Yeah.
My pace has slowed down, but we've filmed a bunch, so.
So you got
My
some-
team, we got
some
like these
content,
tear
yeah.
sheets. We're gonna make it happen before the end of June. We're like pacing it out. We're gonna make it happen, but
Yeah.
it's like, which I think is a worthy effort of time.
Yeah.
And then we'll put them on other platforms. But gee whiz.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, you've been creating content for a heck of a lot longer than I have in terms of, you know, your photography and branding yourself and putting yourself out there like that. So, I mean, I could probably learn a lot from you, but
You could probably learn some technical things, but the funny thing is like you've been doing it in this way to build a beautiful feed, and it's curated, and that's actually like the hardest thing for me
Oh,
to
yeah.
do. So I would definitely argue your experience on that part of it is like experience and skill is just like way beyond mine, which I think like
It's just a different focus though, right? Like you said, I think though the other thing that, I hope I don't like offend anybody saying this,
say it.
but I think that,
Get offended.
yeah, get offended. That's my whole goal in life. I try and avoid offense at all, if at all possible, but
Did you get that from your mom?
Oh.
Politician?
I don't know.
Yeah, we could.
That's a whole other thing. But no, I actually think that it's really difficult for purely business-based Instagram pages to grow and to take off because, you know, I've had people say to me before, because not everybody likes what I do. And truthfully, it's usually the people in your life that should be the most supportive that are like, what are you doing? Like, what? Like, who are you trying to be? Like, advertising, you know, whatever. So I think I've had people say to me, why don't you have an Instagram account for your advertising and then an Instagram account for like your real life?
The product is your
Yeah.
real life.
So people don't follow me
Even-
because I advertise to them. Like, they follow me because
They trust you.
yeah, and because they feel like they know me and because they like whatever I've got going on, whether it's my kids or fashion or my home or a DIY or whatever it is, that's why they're following me. They're following me because of me and what I'm showing them, not because I advertise to them. So it would never work for me to have a purely advertising page and a purely me and my family page, because that's the reason people follow me. So that's why I think actually, like a lot of photographers, they'll have a personal page where they're basically just selling their life, but they can use that page to redirect people to their business page. And their business pages are almost always smaller than their personal pages when they're being intentional about growing, because most people are following you because there's some sort of value added to their life by what you're putting out there most of the time. And so
And if they didn't, they would unfollow you.
yeah, they would just unfollow you. And so I think probably what businesses find is that there'll be like a trend. So like if someone is getting married, they might suddenly follow a bunch of different photographers. But as soon as they don't, or if they use you, they might follow you for a while because you did their wedding. But eventually they might be like, oh, I already got married and there's all these pictures of other people's weddings, so I don't need that. Like that, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So then it becomes more about like the captions or the other ways that you're engaging with the audience so that they want to stick around even if what you're offering isn't like completely relevant to that moment. And that's why I think it's harder for businesses, because you guys are more focused on like your product or what it is that you're putting out there. And you know, it's not so much about just me and this is what I do.
It's only relevant for a period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a need for it.
Yeah.
You know, I've also seen people transition their personal Instagram accounts
Right.
into business accounts
Yes.
after the fact.
Yeah. I've seen that happen. I think that's probably more typical than the other way around, truthfully.
Yeah. Sort of growing sort of like your lifestyle and your brand
Yeah.
and turning it into, this is my company.
Exactly. And I feel like, so what I get all the time, like all the time, I'll get
Like
messages
how often? Just kidding.
all the time. I'll get, and it's like the bane of my existence, which is why I'm bringing it up. And I don't want to offend anybody, but
was
I
it?
get, no, it's everybody. I get
was
messages.
me.
It was not you. I promise you, once I say this, you'll know it wasn't you. I get messages all the time from like home-based businesses wanting me to join their team because
Oh, like MLM stuff, like
Yeah.
Arbonne and
yes, like
Tupper-
tons of MLMs. And it's so funny because it'll be like,
definitely not me.
they'll be
Definitely.
like cut and pasted messages. So you can tell that like an MLM will have, it'll be like a campaign. Like they'll be like, you need to actively be recruiting people on Instagram who have a high following, and this is the script you use. And there'll be certain times a year where it'll happen more so, like if they're pushing towards year end or something, you'll
Roden
suddenly
and
get
Fields,
like a zillion.
Monat.
Everything.
I'm just
All
trying
of
to think
it.
of them.
The best one is, there's one, I can't even remember what it's called, but every single time they message me, and it's always different people, but they'll reach out and be like, I have something that'll change your life and I'd love to tell you more
Amway.
about it. And can I send you, but they'll never tell you what it is. And it's like, just, what are you even talking about? But so that kind of
Is this
thing.
a call to Christ? Are we going to, like, is this a gospel message?
happening?
Oh, it's just Amway. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Oh. So, I mean, that kind of thing drives me crazy. But it's a lot of, and I don't even fault people because they're over there trying to build
those models really succeed with the people who are actually
Yeah.
influencers. Like
Yeah.
I know a person in the city is like makes baller cash from Arbonne
Oh, sure.
because she is an influencer before like
Yeah.
and social media was a big part of it, but
Well, and like I said, I'm not even sitting there, when I say I'm annoyed by it, it's not that I'm thinking they shouldn't do that or that I don't respect the fact that they've got their business and that's how, if that's how you're going to go about doing it, that's great. But for me, I just get so many, and I know it's what people see is the follower count. And they go, okay,
and it's probably coming from head office.
I doubt that.
Like Arbonne's head
I'm not
office
that
is
big.
like
But
no, not necessarily you per
No.
se, but like that's instructions to people.
yes, I actually think that it is. That it's like they'll roll out these initiatives among their, what do you call it, business owners or whatever. And
Affiliates.
yes, they'll like have
sales
to
reps.
target people. So I get it, but and there are a lot of accounts. I follow some accounts that I didn't even realize that they were promoting, like oils is a big one.
Essentials.
Yeah. So there's a couple of accounts that I actually follow, and it was like a couple of months before I realized that they sold essential oils.
And then did you feel like the wool had been pulling? Did you feel deceived? And did you
No.
unfollow?
Or did you appreciate
No,
it more?
I appreciated it more because I was like, oh, okay, so you're not like, I'm never gonna follow an account that's just oil after oil after oil after oil. Every post is about oils. Every post is a picture of a different oil. I'm never gonna follow that, ever. So it's smarter for that person to have a lifestyle account and then just organically talk about something that's a part of their life. So, I mean, sometimes if I'm going through stories and one of them will get real into like oil chat, I'll just like skip through the stories because I don't care about that part, but it's not enough for me to unfollow them.
I had a conversation with somebody a while ago talking about, like you were saying, how business accounts are having a really hard time, just again, like we were saying, because people are only interested for a moment when there's a need. And I was thinking about like, what does like a key marketing position look like in most companies in the future? And when will it be written into that job title that the way that they live needs to be aligned with the brand values of the company that they're working for, and also it needs to be published. And potentially even the company that they work for will own that content, will own that channel. But it's like they're almost paying you not only for your marketing abilities and to manage the channel, but for your life, like
Right.
for the documentation of your life.
Yeah, like you are actually, you're your brand, but you're like somebody else's brand too.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like almost like, I guess the Saskatchewan Wanderer is kind of like an example of that. Like these are
Right.
like, this is a channel that lives beyond this, whoever the person is.
Right.
However, that person, when they sign up, like they now must go and give away their life experiences as
Yeah.
digital content for a brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a really
Interesting.
interesting idea, but I
Yeah.
think that's sort of, it feels like that's sort of the direction that even privately owned businesses will be moving in.
Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, I think that it's kind of interesting because I would say in a place like Saskatchewan, it's not quite as popular yet as it would be in some other bigger centers.
Which I think is always a blessing because like
Yeah.
we don't have to be in on the trends. Like we can be behind.
We're
and
a little bit
still
behind.
ahead
Yeah.
of the trends.
It kind of works because we can like watch how it's worked or not worked in other places before we like dive into it here, I guess. But for me, the interesting thing is sometimes it's difficult. I find it more difficult to show my value locally than internationally even or you know, within North America, because I think there's this, it's just not like not everyone's familiar yet with this way of advertising or this way of getting their content out there through someone like me who has, what I've essentially done is gathered their audience for them, right?
Literally.
So, you know, you can put a billboard on, you know, Idlewild or Circle Drive or wherever, but you're hoping that the right people are going to drive past it, that they're going to look up, that they're going to see it, that they're going to be there at the right time of day, that you're going to pay this X amount of money for, you know, 1 month. And, you know, you're kind of, there's a big gamble there. Whereas with influencers, the gamble is, I would say, cut almost in half right off the hop, because you know that the majority of people who follow me, like you said, are people like me. So like already that part of it, that piece of the guesswork is kind of gone for companies, but it's really hard to explain that, I think, to people. Like it's hard sometimes to prove the value and to say like, this is actually the way that marketing is going. And like, I don't have a degree in marketing. Like I didn't set out to
Which makes
market.
you as educated as people who have a degree in marketing.
Oh,
Like
man.
it's the Wild West now. Like you can't go to university to learn this. Like
It's happening
this,
too
this
quickly.
will be taught. Like what's that? Like the most useful thing you could learn at school was on that one. It was one of those like heritage videos.
Oh, yeah.
The medium is the message.
Oh yeah.
If you remember that one. It was
Yeah, I
just like-
do.
but
Yeah.
that's like the thing. It's like the billboard's the part of the message.
Yeah.
You're part of the message. That's why it works.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're bringing the audience, but It's much more than that.
It's you.
You're letting these brands or whatever, you're letting these other partnerships become a part of your life.
Yeah.
You're letting them in, which
Yeah.
is like that's a huge thing to do as a person.
Well,
That's a huge value. And so yeah, I do think it's actually surprising that the influencer game isn't more established yet. Like as far as like, you know, people outside of the very top echelons of it, like Kim Kardashian or whatever.
right.
But like,
Who like obviously, yeah.
yeah, but I think we're well on our way. And I think it'll be like really interesting over the course of the next couple of years as this matures a little bit.
Yeah.
To see how that actually formalizes. Because I think there's other businesses that are going to come from this as a result. Like I think there'll be companies that you'll be able to align yourself with that'll help with those insights and will help push and promote what it is that people like you do.
And there's lots of hubs for content creators that exist already, which are trying to bring businesses and content creators together. So like a hub will exist. You can sign up as a creator or as a business. And basically, yeah, you can like find each other, right? So a company can look for influencers that they think might suit their campaign, or influencers can apply for campaigns, that sort of a thing. So some of that I think is already happening, but truthfully, I don't use those. I never have any success with them. I know some people who...
They're like, they are to like what you do.
Yeah.
What stock photography is to photography.
Right.
And so it's like, it makes money for the people who run it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not for me. Like, truthfully, most of my partnerships are literally, I don't even know how people find me sometimes. Like I started to tell you guys this in the restaurant. I did a collaboration or a partnership last spring with the Egg Farmers of Canada. It was a very good paying partnership, and I have no idea how they found me. They were hosting an event here in Saskatchewan. They were looking for influencers, and I got an email from a PR company that obviously is working on behalf of, you know, the Egg Farmers of Canada. Their job was to go out and find people like me to do this campaign. So that is how I do pretty much all of my work now, is people will typically come to me with an ask. Sometimes I reach out to a company. If I really want to work with a company, I'll reach out. But then, honestly,
you're not in a place of power.
No,
or
so,
like bartering power.
Yeah, I don't ask for money. If I'm asking for a product, it's because I see the value added.
To your current audience?
Yeah, or to my life, right? So if I wanted, say, to redo my kitchen countertops, and I reached out to a company and said, hey, do you want to work with me? I'm not going to be like, oh, and also you have to pay me. Like, there's value added there for me to have a company come alongside me and do that job for me, or, you know, bring that product into my home. So, I mean, some people would argue, some influencers would argue that when we do things for free, or when we do things for less than we're worth, or when we do straight up product for posts,
sounds like photography.
Partnerships, that we devalue everyone, right? Because then it's like,
devaluing the industry and
right?
the market.
It's like no one's going to pay you what you deserve because they can get, you know, something similar from someone who's willing to do it for less. But I think for me, it just comes down to like, what's the value added to my life? And that's actually part of how I think I try and avoid some of that social media fatigue, where it's like, when I started out, I did like everything. I mean, as long as it aligned with
Check
my
out
brand.
these new
and
Michelin
everything.
tires. Are so great.
Just like,
You can drive
hey.
everywhere with them. I believe in this company.
Including the IHOP, which I also highly recommend.
You guys like
it's-
Denny's? Denny's is the greatest for Mother's Day.
Yeah, no, you got to be careful because, again, it's your integrity, right? But I would say I'm doing less partnerships now than I was a year ago, just in terms of pure number, but I'm making way more money now than I was a year ago.
So here's a question for you. I'm going to bring up Jillian Harris because she went from actual TV star
Right.
to staying as a celebrity slash influencer on
Right.
social media. So
Yes.
she's like bridged a gap.
Yeah.
I'm curious if for you there would be like, and maybe even for her, but like for you, would you ever view a gap where you start making your own platform, where you're like vlogging, where you, I know we were talking about making some videos or I
Right,
can't remember
yeah.
the context, but like
Yeah.
for you to have a show, your own show, or
Right.
for you to do something like,
Right. Like, what's the next step in terms of my like empire?
would you, would you do it? And then I guess, cause it would be such a time commitment, but like, would you
Right.
do it? And then, I don't know, if it wasn't on Instagram, would you, I guess maybe the question might even be like, if it's not on Instagram, do you keep doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am interested in branching outside of just Instagram. I mean, Instagram is where I got started, again, because of that. Actually, that's not even true. I had a blog back in 2013 because we moved to China with a 2-year-old and a 5-week-old, and people
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and people thought that was interesting. So I started a blog just to keep people updated as far as what we were doing. So I was doing the blogging side of things even before I did Instagram, but I kind of let it go by the wayside and didn't really pay much attention to it for a couple of years. And then it was really that like creative side of Instagram that brought me back into sort of a more modern version of social media than what I had been doing, or a more intentional use of social media, I guess is a better way to put it. But I mean, I think you had asked me this before, and I don't know if I ever fully answered it. If I could do this as like a viable career, I think I would try to do that. And it's probably just a matter of, I mean, I have a very good paying job as an educator. I mean, sorry, there's going to be teachers that are like, no, you don't. Teachers don't make enough money. But I mean,
Teachers make a healthy
I
income,
have a
right?
healthy amount of, I have a healthy salary, and I have a very good pension. And so if I were to think about what would I have to actually be
to replace that.
doing to replace that, it's actually quite a lot. Like, it would be a while before I would be making the kind of money that I would need to make in order to actually replace what I currently have. And the other part is I actually do like my job. I would love to maybe do less of that and a little more of this. And truthfully, if I didn't also have 4 young children at home, I might be more interested in being like, let's take the risk and who cares about the finances and we'll make it work, right? There's this whole other part of me that's like, okay, I have to think about the whole family unit in terms of where this dream goes. And that's fine. Of course, that's fine. That's how it should be. I should care about my family and their well-being. And
Well, that's why you're
that's actually
relevant.
and that's part of the reason I wanted to monetize in the first place, was to help add to, our family and that sort of thing. So, I mean, sure, straight up. If I could like be Jillian Harris and like have my little empire, and
if you could even just replace your current income or close to.
yeah, I would probably want to
Yeah.
do it. If I could replace it, including my pension, like if I
Yeah,
could
that's
put
the-
aside, that's the kicker, right?
That's worth so much money.
But I mean, so I did start a platform called SAS Creative Co., which is,
yeah, let's talk about that.
yeah, so I mean, I guess it's not a platform. It's just another page on Instagram. But there's 2 others that are part of that now. But
Shout out.
yes, so Erica is part of that and Kelsey is part of that.
At Sask_creative
Yeah,
co.
SAS Creative Co. So it's at SK_creative_co. And that's our Instagram handle. So I started that completely on a whim because I was doing these workshops for people to learn more about social media and how to use it intentionally. And the number one thing that everybody said at both of the workshops I hosted was that it was just so nice to be in a room with like-minded people who understood what they were trying to do. Because there's so many people still that don't get it. They don't like it. They're like, why are you advertising? Why are you showing me this soap? Or why are you, whatever. They don't get it. They don't like it. They think it's fake or whatever. So
I appreciate it more actually when it's like you, I think #ad.
yeah, you have to. That's actually
Is that a
the
Canadian
law.
law? Or- yeah.
You have to let people know when you're advertising.
I love knowing when it's an ad. I'm
Yeah.
like, and knowing you would only do it if you liked it.
If I liked
great.
it,
Great.
exactly.
I watch tons of people on the internet who are given free cameras or whatever,
Yeah.
and I'm like jealous, but also
Yeah.
like, well, what he says about it matters on my purchase decision.
Sure. Yeah. It's like a review, right? So, yeah. So, anyway, we started SAS Creative Co., and it completely just came out of this idea that here in Saskatchewan, there didn't seem to be a lot of ways for people to network as influencers or even as creatives. Like, I think it's getting better, but especially as an influencer, I mean, I didn't even know that some of these other influencers even existed. And we're always like, oh, hey, like, I didn't know you did this. And like, we're not that big of a province. But there just didn't seem to be a place, yet for people to do that. So I started a page, asked Erica and Kelsey to help out with it. And it's grown, I think, pretty steadily. Like I think it's been up for about 4 or 5 weeks, and we're almost at 1,000 followers, and they're mostly local.
It's taken me like 8 years to get there.
We have something that everybody is interested in, right? Because it's so broad. It's just creatives. So we've got highlight reels for, like, I think the overall vision would be that if people were in Saskatchewan and they wanted to find something creative based, right? If they wanted to find a small business to purchase from, or if they wanted to know where to go eat, or if they wanted to know about the photographers, that they might come to our page and find that information there. People can advertise on our page as well, and we have also branched into hosting events for people to get together and network. So we hosted a meet and mingle last month, and we're hosting an event at the end of May, which is kind of geared towards influencers, but it's a photo crawl here in Riversdale. So we're having 3 stylized locations. Basically, influencers, content creators, entrepreneurs pay to come to each,
Cool.
set.
Have some fun.
Have
Be
some
creative.
fun. They're going to get some photos out of it. The photographers are going to get shout outs from all these influencers. It kind of like is mutually beneficial. We've got businesses that are supporting it. So the businesses are going to get shout outs by all of these influencers, so we're trying to like find a way for people to connect and network and work together and grow. Because like I said at the beginning, I do think that with social media, there is room for everybody at the top. Like, most businesses aren't looking for just one influencer to work with. They want a range of people. They want their product in front of as many eyes as possible. So I'm not really in competition with other influencers for partnerships. It's just a matter of, what do you offer? And I'm going to appeal to different brands even than my sister is, because we have a different aesthetic. Even though we have a similar life, we have a different aesthetic. So it's just,
And you both have cute kids.
yeah, that's a huge bonus, especially in the influencer world.
I'd call them the block kids, but they're the Rhinus, Weens,
Yeah.
Obst kids.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally biased, but they are pretty cute. And
Yeah.
They are,
so-
definitely.
So yeah, it's an interesting, like,
think-
wilderness.
I think we've talked a lot about social media, which I love.
Yeah.
But part of what makes it special, we've touched on very many times, is
Right.
you personally, is what people follow.
Yeah.
You got a nice scar here.
I do. It's very nice. You can see about a third of it right now.
Yeah, so you have 4 beautiful children. I was at her wedding, actually.
Yeah. Didn't you help shoot it?
I worked with Stuart Kasdorf, a photographer here in the city.
Yeah,
and then
Yeah.
I knew of you guys because my mom was a teacher at VCA, actually. I think that was it.
Yeah.
But then, anyway.
Yeah. Such a small world, hey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
I remember you were doing photography at our wedding,
Yeah,
weren't you? Like a second shooter or something?
I shot your ceremony. That
Yeah,
was
you
it.
did, because we have a beautiful picture. It's one of our favorites, and I'm sure
Was it
you
the girl
took it.
standing at the...
No, it's the one of Jeff and I are walking down the aisle.
Oh, and you're grabbing
and
your
both the
parents'
dads' hands are out. Yeah,
I took
on either
that
side.
picture.
You did. And
How long
it's
have you
like
been married?
11
11?
years.
Yeah.
In June it'll be 11.
So talk about life.
Well, I mean,
Where do you live in
so I live in Waltheim.
Waldheim?
Yeah, so that's about 40 minutes north of here. And I am a teacher. which we already talked about.
And Jeff is a teacher.
Jeff
right?
is also a teacher, and we have our 4 kids. They are almost 8, almost 6, 2, and 8 months. So we're busy.
Okay, that was okay. I thought your youngest was like 2. So
No, she's just born. So I feel like I am the kind of person that like stuff happens to all the time. Like that sounds silly, but it's like I don't know if I like attract like drama or what it is, but stuff just always happens. Or I'll like say yes to things that other people wouldn't say yes to. And it's not that I'm reckless, but I think there's this part of me that like really craves adventure. So even though there's this other part of me that's like, oh, I've got these 4 kids, like we need to be realistic over here, you know, whatever. But so like Jeff and I, right after we got married, we went to South Korea for 2 years and we lived and worked and taught there at a private international school. And then we came back and we had our 2 oldest kids. And then when our son was 5 weeks old and our daughter was 2, we moved to China because we wanted another adventure. And everyone thought we were crazy and like, why would you move to
I'm
China
glad
with
you
a
waited
baby?
5 weeks because like 4 weeks is a little too.
That's a
quick,
little
but
early.
5's the great.
It was
time.
a really
Just
fun
enough to
time to
get-
fly.
Just enough to get unpacked,
Yeah,
settled.
From the hospital.
yeah, exactly. Just enough to, yeah, whatever. It was crazy, but like I wouldn't change it. It was great, but that's kind of what I mean. Like I feel like we decide to do things, and then also on top of that, crazy things just seem to happen all the time. And so one of those crazy things, I think, was this last year, well, about almost exactly a year ago. So I was expecting our 4th baby, and I had been given the go-ahead from my cardiologist at the time to have another baby, because there'd been a little bit of question about if I should or not when I was pregnant with our 3rd, but my cardiologist said I was fine.
And because
I have a heart
murmur?
condition. Yes, I was born with bicuspid aortic stenosis. So everyone's aorta should have these 3 nice little leaflets that open and close. Yeah, they open real nice, they close real nice. I only have 2, and they don't close properly. Well, they didn't close properly. So my heart's always had to work a lot harder to do what anyone else's would. So pregnancy is obviously hard on your body, and I heard it said once that like being pregnant is the equivalent to like running a marathon every day, like just the toll it can take on your body and how your body's working. So it's hard on the body, and you're carrying all this extra blood in your system and all these things. So I had always been kind of told like that, you know, one day they were going to need to replace this valve one day. And my former...
You kind of imagine that when you're like 70.
Well, he would say to me, my cardiologist actually used to say 20 or 30 years. That was always his line when I'd go see him, 20 or 30 years, 20 or 30 years. Okay. And he told me that I was fine. I could have a 4th baby. So we decided to go ahead and do that. And then almost exactly a year ago, I got a phone call from his office telling me that basically he was not practicing for a while. He was stepping away indefinitely, and that I needed to find a new cardiologist. Which, that's
so you
easy.
Okay, and then let me guess, you got a second opinion, and the new guy's like, holy crap.
Yeah, basically. So it
How are
ended,
you moving?
This guy was passing the buck.
yeah, like
It's fine.
it was like, yeah, so it took about 5 weeks for me to get a new cardiologist, and it was actually kind of a miracle that I even ended up with a new cardiologist, because my OB was trying to get me referred, and nobody was like, everyone was full, or I don't know, nobody was taking my case. And my mom was out east at an event completely unrelated to, like, it was like a social event. And while she was there, she met a cardiologist from Regina, and they were just visiting. And my mom straight up was like, oh, I feel like such an idiot for doing this, but I have to
You have to.
ask you for help. Yeah, like she was basically like, I'm sorry, I know we're at this social event, but can you help my daughter? Like, this is the situation. And he was like, yep. And the very next day he messaged me and got my history. And the day after that, I was in the office of my new cardiologist who is amazing. Like I cannot even.
Do you want to name drop him?
I should. It's Dr. Eric Paz Jensen. He's like I owe the man my life, for sure I do. Sweet. I totally do. So he had me in on like the Tuesday. This was at the end of June last year. On the Thursday, I came back in so he could talk to me about my echo results and everything. And it was like not good. It was like quite bad. And people always ask me like, how did you not know physically that things were getting so bad? And I mean, part of it is that congestive heart failure, the symptoms of going into congestive heart failure or the lead up to it are very similar to what you experience in pregnancy. So swollen feet, shortness of breath, pressure on your lungs, like it can be masked actually. And I have been pregnant a lot over the last 8 years. We have 4 children. We had 2 miscarriages in that time. So like probably for like 6 years out of the last 8, I've been pregnant. So I didn't notice that I was deteriorating.
Many pregnant months.
Yes, that's many pregnant months, exactly. So and it's kind of like boiling a frog. Like you don't wake up one day and you can't breathe anymore. I mean, I guess maybe some people do, but that's not how it was for me. It was like over the last decade, it's been worsening to the point where I would like compensate, right? You just kind of adjust your life to how you're feeling or whatever. So it was quite bad. And they were like, well, you're 5 months pregnant. Probably would not have recommended that I would have a 4th baby. So that's the silver lining to all of this, is that, you know, in a bizarre way, having her almost killed me, but not having her might have for sure. Because if I hadn't been pregnant with her, I would have never, I probably wouldn't have pursued a new cardiologist so aggressively. Yeah. I probably would have just let things, you know, I would have been like, oh, well, he said I was fine, you know, whatever. And it was so bad that by the time, so I had Nora in September and she was born 2 months early, and that was because of me. Like I just couldn't carry her any longer without potentially going into congestive heart failure. And they didn't want to be in an emergent situation. They were
so like a C-section.
So I did have a C-section with her, yeah. Yeah, I did. But even that was risky because...
I assume they can't induce you because then it would put so much strain on your body? Or?
You know, it's interesting. You would think that. But actually, for people who have issues with their aorta, like I did, they actually prefer you to have your baby naturally because it's called autotransfusion. But when all the blood in your system, after a woman has a baby, there's all this blood, like 30% more blood that needs to go somewhere. And it's called autotransfusion, and that's how your body kind of, you know, reabsorbs it. And so when you have a baby naturally, the body does that slowly over the course of about 24 hours. It will slowly reabsorb all this blood. But when you have a C-section, the way it was explained to me is that it's like a shock to your system. And so all of the blood just gets dumped back into your system, like over the course of about 30 minutes is what they told me. So they were worried that my valve would not be able to tolerate that sudden.
So they're like on standby?
Yeah. So I delivered Nora in an operating room. Like they induced me hoping that I could have her naturally.
But you're in an operating room just in case.
It was the craziest thing.
So is your cardiologist just ready with a knife, just like?
Well, he wasn't there, but they had like a cardiac nurse was there, and they had 2 anesthesiologists, one who is specifically like deals with cardiac related surgeries and things like that. So he was there. I mean, we had like the dream team, truthfully. My OB was amazing. Like it was crazy, but it was so different than all of my other deliveries because it was like this sterile, cold environment. And an operating table is like, I mean, not that the delivery beds at RUH are so luxurious.
This cost you nothing. I'm just stating this for our followers. Like the followers, if you share this on your page, is like someone in the US, you paid nothing for this treatment.
You're right. I paid nothing for this luxurious stay and all of the special treatment I got. So I'm very grateful because if I had to pay, like I've said, I've been a huge drain on the healthcare system this last year. But Anyway, so that was her delivery. And like by the grace of God, everything went very well in terms of her delivery. And she spent about a month in the NICU because she was just little. She was good, but she was just too small. So yeah, they were hoping that my symptoms would decrease enough that I could have more time with Nora and just healing, because I did end up having a C-section. So yeah, they were hoping that I'd have more time, but my symptoms were not getting any better. So they just decided there's no point in waiting. We're gonna have this heart surgery. So I ended up having open heart surgery on December 17th. But, because like I said, things just always happen to me. It was supposed to be this super standard 3-hour procedure, and it wasn't. There were complications, and it was no fault of the surgeon or anyone involved. It was like a total fluke. But the long and the short of it is that my coronary artery became compromised during the surgery, and they didn't realize until they took me off bypass. And so, I mean, the bypass is what's pumping your blood for you while they stop your heart so they can operate on it. So they replaced the valve, everything was good to go. They took me off bypass, and I had a heart attack because the blood couldn't flow through the coronary artery. So
were you technically dead?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they say you're technically dead whenever you're like clinically dead when your heart stops. Yeah. Even if a bypass machine is running, I think they technically say you're clinically dead because your heart's not beating. So I guess, but I mean, it's kind of weird. But what ended up happening too, and like the surgeon, it blows my mind how things just kind of happen. But I'm told that all my ECG readings, which is like the heart rhythmic measurements, the readings were all normal. But the surgeon like looked at my heart and was like, that is not right. And so that's when they started trying to figure out what was like, why the blood wasn't flowing properly, what was happening, why was I having this heart attack? And that's when they figured out that the coronary artery was compromised. So they did an emergency bypass as well. So they took a vein out of my leg and put it into my heart. And so I have a really lovely scar on my leg too. I'm a bit of a
got some battle scars.
Battlefield over here. But yeah, so it ended up taking about 9 hours to do the surgery. And I mean, I'm very lucky, truthfully, that it all turned out so well, because we've been told so many times that if it hadn't been that surgeon, the outcomes probably wouldn't have been what they were. You know, if it hadn't been, you know, just my cardiologist referring me to the right people and just all these things, that it could have gone so differently. And they were worried too that I would have brain damage because I was without oxygen the whole time they were trying to figure out what was going on, right? There was no blood. They put me back on bypass as quickly as they could, but that takes time and it's hard on the body, and you know, so they weren't sure if there would be problems.
How long was that?
I don't know exactly how long that part of it was. It's funny because like I'm a bit morbid, I guess. I wish that I could like watch the whole thing play out on like a movie. I do. You
should have GoPro'd it.
I wish. Like, I'm sure there's liability out the wazoo. They probably, whatever. But I would love to know step by step exactly what happened. How long did that take? Like, how long, you know, all these things. But, you know, I've read the medical reports and things, and I know that the surgery was supposed to take 3 hours. It took 9 hours instead. And a good portion of that was like, because a bypass I don't think takes that long either. I think it took them a while to, you know, just figure out what was going on. They had to do a test to see what artery was compromised, all that stuff.
So you wake up, you haven't technically been there.
No, I don't
you
remember any
don't know
of
what's
it.
going on.
Yeah.
Your husband walks in the room. I assume he's the first person with maybe your parents, or
yeah. So
was he just like when you woke up? Was he just like crying, or?
No, I'm like a little offended by it actually, because
I'm like almost like, oh my God, if I was him. God.
Right? Like I feel like he should have been more upset about it, but no, it's yeah, it's really surreal. Like when I think about waking up, because I was in the ICU and I remember hearing phrases. I remember my parents. I remember hearing my parents. I remember hearing Jeff. I remember hearing my sister, Erica, was there. I still had the breathing tube in, which was horrendous for me. Like I was like, take it out. Like I wanted them to take it out
Right
so
now,
badly.
yeah.
But you can't communicate. And what actually like was the scariest part for me was that in my memory anyway, I was completely lucid, but unable to communicate. And I can't imagine what that would be like for people who have had strokes or, you know, whatever, and they find themselves,
Sort of stuck.
yeah, like trapped in their own bodies. That's how it felt to me. So that was actually the worst part for me, was that I don't even know how long it was, maybe an hour, where I felt like I could communicate, but I wasn't actually able to.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, everyone was pretty emotional, I guess. And I remember someone saying, does she know what happened? And I was like, what happened? You know, like, what's good? And they're like, no, like, don't, not yet. It's
Like, I can deal with this.
like, tell me, hit me with it. What happened? So yeah, so it was kind of crazy. And they'd been debating, because what had ended up happening was my right ventricle suffered damage right out of the surgery, because it had been trying to pump blood and it couldn't go anywhere, so it was damaged. So they weren't sure, it wouldn't pump on its own after I had surgery. So I was on a special drug that was pumping my heart for me, essentially. And I had to stay in the ICU while I was on the drug, obviously. But if my heart couldn't be weaned off of the drug, they would have had to do a transplant, is essentially what would have had to happen. So it kind of was like supposed to be this simple thing, but it ended up being this big thing. And again, by the grace of God, it actually worked out, and I'm okay, and they weaned me off the drug, and my heart's doing good, and I've got this new valve, which works better than my old one ever did, except it ticks. I can hear it, which is like a little bit weird. But yeah, so that happened.
And then here we are.
And here we are chatting about it.
All of that,
All
just
that.
so
I'm
that
sorry, it's like such a
you
long
can make
story.
it.
No.
So you can make it.
So I
here
could
with
come
us.
here. It's all meant to be.
Of course.
But to be fair, it's made me a lot more like interested in talking about congenital heart defects. And, you know, I mean, I never really championed it as a cause before, but that's actually something that I talk about a lot on my social media and different things. And it's amazing the people that have reached out to me and said, you know, my child was born with the same thing, or, you know, my mom had a heart attack, or my mom has to have open heart surgery. What do you recommend? Or, you know, all these things. So it's just like that being real with people, right? Is
yeah.
just kind of, it's all in a big circle. So,
Well, thank you so much for
yeah.
agreeing to come on. This has been
Thanks for
awesome.
having me. I don't even know if you got anything worth showing everybody.
We're doing awesome. Like, these cards are,
Good.
that one's got 4% of battery left.
Oh my
That
gosh.
one just shut off.
Wow.
It's okay. I know it just shut off, and then that one's like
Good.
on the edge. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
this was
you for
great.
having me and letting me like just talk.